Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel and to this tutorial. This is the video tutorial for my basket bottomed bag crochet pattern. You can also get a PDF pattern and you can purchase a kit to go with both. Links for both of those will be in the description under this video. If you have come to this video via the kit, then you will already have everything you need. If you have come to this video without buying the kit, there'll be information in the next section about what you need in order to make one of these bags. This is a small one that I've made for the sample. It does follow the instructions in the pattern exactly. So if you've got the PDF pattern and you're using the same yarn and the same hook sizes, your bag will end up a very similar size. However, it's really, really easy to customize the size of this bag, and I do show you how to do that in this tutorial and describe how to do it in the pattern. So hopefully you can either make a mini bag like this or a really big one, whatever size you want. Hopefully this tutorial will make sense and the PDF pattern will be easy to follow as well. If you do have any issues at all, please do feel free to get in touch with me by email. My email address will be in the description under the video, as well as being in the PDF pattern and in various other places. I'm very easy to get in touch with. I hope you enjoy. Okay, you will need approximately 65 meters of your Aran weight yarn. I'm using the Colour Lab Aran in whichever colour this is. Is chocolate brown. You see the label? You can. And you'll need approximately 60 meters of your DK weight yarn. Again, I'm using Colour Lab, but in DK this time. And this colour is Soft Stone. If you're using the Colour Lab yarn, you will have more than enough. If you have a skein of each, say half a skein of each will probably do you as well. Obviously this is if you're sticking to the size of the bag. This is if you're sticking exactly to the pattern. If you do make your bag larger, then you will need more yarn than the pattern suggests. Just bear that in mind. You will also need a 4mm crochet hook and a 3.5mm crochet hook. And it will be useful to have on hand a tapestry needle. I like the ones with bent tips, but that's just personal preference. And a pair of scissors or snips. And some locking stitch markers. You'll probably only need one or two, but have a few handy just in case. Let's begin. A couple of quick notes. I will be working with US terminology throughout this tutorial. If you prefer UK terminology, I will put a quick conversion chart in the description of this video. But yeah, I'll be talking in US terms throughout. And unless I've stated otherwise, the bag is worked in a spiral, so the rounds are not joined. You don't turn your work, anything like that. You just keep working in a continuous spiral. It is useful, therefore, to use a stitch marker to mark the first stitch of each round, just so you know how many you've done. Alright, as this bag is worked from the bottom up, we're going to start with the Aran weight yarn and the smaller hook. The base of your bag should be nice and dense, nice tight stitches, so that it stands up straight like a basket. So you want, even though you're using a thicker yarn, you want the smaller of your two hooks. And we are going to start with a magic ring. You can, if you are not a fan of magic rings, you can start by chaining 2 and then work into the first chain instead. But I'm going to show you how I do a magic ring. I learnt this method years ago and it's always worked really well for me. So you're going to hold the tail of your yarn in your left hand if you are a right-handed crocheter. Wrap the yarn around the first 2 fingers of your left hand, then around the back and cross over. To hold that in place, I'm going to pop your crochet hook under the lower loop, so the first loop that you made, and then grab the other loop which crosses over the top and just pull it through. You can slide those off the fingers, take the working end of your yarn over and put it through to make a slip stitch. It will be quite tight, and that's fine. And there you go, you have a magic circle or a magic ring, depending on what you prefer to call it. Just going to slightly adjust my camera angle, and then I'll do that again just to make sure I've shown you nice and clearly, and then we'll carry on. Alright, so once more, tail of your yarn in your left hand, the yarn holding hand. Wrap the yarn over those two fingers, round the back, cross it over, your hook under the first loop, pull the second loop through, and sort of just twist your hook so that you've got a little loop. Let me see if I can show you. There's kind of a little loop there. Okay, then we can slip these off your fingers and yarn over and pull through, and that's just your slip stitch to start. I've got a bit of fluff attached to the yarn, we'll get rid of that. Now I'm going to use a tension ring to keep my yarn secure, just because I find it so much easier. That is again just personal preference. I find them really helpful. They're really cheap to get hold of if you do want to have one, but you do not have to. Now we're going to work into this ring. Make sure that you've got the tail off to the left. You're going to work over it, and then you can pull that tight at the end. If it's pointing the other way, it won't work. Okay, so we're going to begin with 8 single crochets worked into this magic loop. So you got your hook into the circle, yarn over and pull through, so you've got 2 loops, yarn over and pull through both loops. You've got one loop on your hook again, and that's your first stitch. Let's secure that stitch with a stitch marker so I know it's there. I'm going to do that 7 more times. So hook into the circle, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, that's your second stitch. So 3, and it will be quite tight, so you may struggle to pull your hook through some of the time. That's 4. Fluff attached to my, oh no, it's there's supposed to be, it's the tweedy bits on this yarn. It's 5, 6, 7, 8. That's your first 8 stitches, so we're just going to pull this tail now. Pull that so it's nice and tight. We'll secure it a bit later. Let's just put it nice and tight for now. So if I just slip my hook out from it, should have 8 stitches in a little circle looking something like that. Right. As I mentioned, we are not going to join the round, we are not going to turn our work, we're just going to carry straight on. Round 2 calls for an increase in every stitch, so that's 2 single crochets in each of the stitches we've made so far. So I'll keep that there for a minute so I can see which stitch I'm working into. We find this first stitch, you pop the hook in under both loops, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 2. Move that stitch marker so I know that that is now the first stitch of my new round. And I'm going to work into that same stitch again. So pop the hook back into that stitch. Again, you will find this quite difficult because it is quite dense. Yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 2. then onto the next stitch in your first round. Insert the hook, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 2. And again into the same stitch, another single crochet in there, and then we're going to just continue that all the way around. Alright, you should now have a circle looking approximately like this with 16 stitches around the outside, and we'll move on to round 3. For round 3 we want 1 single and then 1 increase all the way around, so I'm going to work into this first stitch 1 single crochet, mark that with the stitch marker, then in this second stitch along we're going to do an increase, so that's 2 single crochets in there, 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Into the next one we want 1 single crochet, and then 2 into the next one. One into the next one, and 2 into the next one, and you're going to keep doing that all the way around. Okay, we're now at a point where we can weave in the starting tail, just to make sure that's nice and secure. So grab your tapestry needle, turn your work over so you're working on the back, and pull that tail nice and tight so that there's no hole at the bottom anymore. If you have worked into a chain 2 instead of into a magic circle, you may not be able to get it quite tight. That depends on your tension and on your yarn. Okay, and I'm just going to wrap the yarn around one of the stitches just to stop it coming loose easily, and then just weave it under a few in one direction, then back on itself. Because I'm working in wool, that should be plenty to secure the end, because after a little while it will start to felt. So I can just trim the excess off at this point. If you're working with a more slippery yarn, I would suggest weaving your end in a little bit more securely than that. But if you're working in this colour lab wool, that will be fine. Right, on to round 4, where we're going to work 2 single crochets and then an increase, but in order to make sure that the base of your bag is nice and circular, we're going to stagger the increases. So instead of doing single, single, increase, we're going to start with 1 single, then an increase, then 2 singles, increase, 2 singles, increase all the way around, and then finish with 1 single crochet right at the end. I hope that makes sense. So in this first stitch here, want 1 single crochet, move that stitch marker so I know that's the first stitch of the round, then into the next stitch we want 2, that's your increase. Then we're going to do 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch again, and then 2 in this next stitch for your increase, repeat. So 1, 2, 2, and that's not very neat, but it'll do. And all the way around, and you should have 1 stitch left. Come back to me when you do. Okay, so you should have just done your last increase and should have 1 stitch left. We're just putting 1 single crochet into there to finish off the round. And you should have something like this. Okay, then round 5, we're going to increase again, but we're going to have 3 singles and then the increase. So we're going to go, where's that first stitch? 1 into that first stitch. And move the stitch marker. 1 into the second stitch. 1 into the third stitch. And then 1 and 2 to make your increase in that 4th stitch. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. Alright, we are now on to round 6. Again, this is another increase round, but we are going to stagger the increases again. So we're going to start with 2 singles and an increase. So do a single crochet in the first stitch. And a single crochet in this second stitch, and an increase in this third stitch. Now we are into the pattern repeat for this row, so we want 1 single, 2 singles, 3 singles, 4 singles, and then your increase in this 5th stitch along, and then we're going to repeat that all the way around. So 4 single crochets and then you increase all the way around. You should have 2 unworked stitches left here. Come back to me when you do, and we will finish the round. Okay, I have just worked my last increase here, and I've got 2 unworked stitches left, so I'm going to do 1 single in each of those, 1 and 2, and that's the round complete. Right, at this stage, if you would like to make the base of your bag larger, you can keep repeating those increase rounds in the same way that we have been so far. So your next round would have 5 single crochets and then an increase all the way around. The round after that would have 6 single crochets and then an increase. You might want to stagger them as we have been doing, but those are the numbers that you'd need. The round after that would have 7 single crochets and then an increase, and so on. Keep doing that until the base of your bag is the size that you want. We are just making a really small one here today. But yeah, you can obviously make it as large as you want. So I'm going to carry on to round 7. So for this, we're going to start round 7 with a slip stitch in just the back loop of this first stitch here. Now I know this is quite dark yarn, I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing okay. So you see the stitch marker goes under both loops of this stitch here. You've got 1 loop there, 1 loop there. I'm hoping you can see. I'm going to work in between them basically. You insert your hook in between those loops and bring it out under the back loop there, which is the loop furthest away from you. I'm going to slip stitch into there. Try not to make it too tight, but also you don't want a big gap. So, okay, so we've got a slip stitch there. That's the first stitch of the round. So I'm going to move that stitch marker into there. I'm then going to work a single crochet into the back loop of every other stitch all the way around. So again, find the next stitch. We've got one loop there, one loop there at the back. Instead of working under both of them like we normally would, we're going to work in between them. Your hook comes out underneath that back loop. Then just as normal, yarn over and pull through one loop, yarn over and pull through two. I'm going to do that all the way around. So again, in between those two loops, yarn over and pull through one, yarn over and pull through two. One more time, work in between the two loops of the V, yarn over and pull through one, yarn over and pull through two. I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around. One single crochet in the back loop of every single stitch all the way around your base. Alright, your base should now look like this. You can see there's that lovely little detail just around the edge here, which I just think looks really neat, and it also helps turn the corner so that we'll now be working up the sides of your bag. All we're going to do from this point onwards is work a single crochet into each of the stitches all the way around, and we're going to keep doing that until it's as tall as we want it to be, basically. So I'm going to start this first round. Now this first stitch might be a little bit tricky because that slip stitch is probably going to be tighter than any of your other stitches. We're going to go under both loops like we normally would, single crochet in there, move the marker so I know that that's now the first stitch of the round, and do one single in the next stitch, one in the next stitch, one in the next stitch, all the way around. And when I get back to here, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to move, once I've worked another stitch into here, I'm going to move that stitch marker up so it's in the first stitch of the round again. Keep doing that as I work up. I have put in the pattern that I am going to work 8 rounds for my base. You can make your base as tall or as short as you want it to be. Just keep going until you're happy. Once I've finished the base, I'll come back to you. I have now reached the last stitch of the last round of my base of my bag. That's how it's looking so far. It's a bit wobbly, but that's okay. It can be reshaped nice and easily. There it is from the side and from the bottom. So we are now going to finish this round off by just slip stitching back into that first stitch like that. And we're going to cut our yarn. So we're finished with this yarn now. I'm going to leave a fairly long tail so I can sew the end in. Just move that out of the way. We don't need that anymore. Okay, and then if you just pull the hook through. Sorry, that's my phone. It's not going to come undone now. You can't pull it undone. It's secure, but we need to fasten this off neatly and weave that tail in so that it's hidden and even more secure. So I'm going to get my tapestry needle, thread that. I'm going to do what's called an invisible join. So let me just take that stitch marker out. We don't need that anymore. And what we're going to do is find the next stitch along. So I've slip stitched into here. Hopefully you can see that okay. So we're going to insert the needle, remember how to do this, into this next stitch along. That's the one that we've slip stitched into. Insert the needle into this one from the front to the back. Pull it all the way through. And then we're going to find the middle of this last stitch that we've made. So here's the stitch here. You can see the yarn tails coming out of it. There. I'm going to insert the needle back into the middle of that stitch, so next to where the yarn's coming out. Again, from the front to the back, and just take it all the way through. And pull it not too tight, just so that it's roughly the same tension as the rest of your stitches, so the loop is the same size, and then just weave the yarn in at the back. Alright, we now have the base completed. It's time to start the upper section of the bag. So we're going to change to the DK weight yarn. That's upside down. DK weight yarn. And the larger of your hooks, for me that's 4mm. We are going to start this first round with a standing single crochet in the back loop of any stitch from that last round of the base. Start by making a slip knot, however you prefer to do that, and slip that onto your hook just like so. And then we get your base section, and if you look at the stitches you can see along the top each stitch forms a V almost, and you have 2 loops. You've got a front loop there and a back loop there. I'm going to work in between those 2 loops. So you're going to insert your hook in between the 2 loops like that. So you're working just under the back loop, which is the furthest one away from you. And to do a standing single crochet, we just yarn over, pull through that back loop, then yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. And then again I'm going to just pop a stitch marker in that hook. No, pop a stitch marker in that stitch so that I know that's the first stitch of my round. Now I'm going to work over this tail to keep it secure. Obviously if you'd rather leave it and weave it in later, that's entirely up to you. I find when I'm working with a wool yarn that just working over the tail is usually secure enough, but each to their own. So we are going to continue making single crochet stitches in the back loop all the way around. So again, find the next stitch, we're working in between those 2 loops, like that. Yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, and again into the middle of the stitch, you just into 1 loop, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, I'm going to work those all the way around. I will come back to you when I'm done. And here we go at the end of this first round of the top section. You can see that you get this lovely little detail here where the front loop of these stitches sort of is pushed forward slightly, creating a little ridge. It's an effect I really, really love. I just think it looks really neat. And we're going to move straight on to the next round to work the main body of this top section of your bag. We are now going to be using extended single crochet stitches. This may be a stitch that you haven't encountered before. It was one that was new to me not so long ago. I fell in love with it, and it's why I ended up designing this bag, a part of why anyway, so that I could use that stitch. It's really, really simple. Please don't let it faze you. So it's we're going to start straight into this the first stitch of the round. To start the next round, we're going to insert our hook under both loops, working back under both loops of the stitches again. I'm going to yarn over and pull through that stitch. Now yarn over and just pull through that first loop, I have done far too tightly. There we go. And then yarn over and pull through both the loops to complete your stitch. I'm just going to shift that stitch marker to mark the first stitch of the new round. And let's do that again. So insert your hook into the next stitch along, yarn over and pull through the stitch, yarn over and pull through the first loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Once more, into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, I'm going to work that same stitch all the way around. And at this point it is entirely up to you how many rows you do. You're just going to keep working in a spiral until this top section of your bag is as tall as you want it. Do bear in mind that the last few rows where we add eyelets for the drawstring cord and then a couple of finishing rounds, that will add another centimetre, maybe 2, to the height of your bag. So just bear that in mind when you decide how tall you want this. Yeah, I'm going to do 5 rounds, I think, and I will come back to you when I've done them. Okay, I am at the end of my final row of extended single crochet. I've just done 5 rows for this sample, but again, you can do as many or as few as you like. Now you can see here where we've got this last stitch, there's a drop before we get back to the first stitch of the next row. If we were carrying on, that would be fine, we'd just keep working in a spiral. But the next row is going to be different, so we want to level this out. So we are going to work a single crochet in this stitch. So insert your hook, yarn over and pull through the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Take that stitch marker out for a moment so it doesn't confuse matters, and then slip stitch into this next stitch here. So we're just going to insert the hook, yarn over, pull through all the way through, so you've just got 1 loop left on your hook, and that completes that round and gives you a nice flat edge to work off. The next round is to create the eyelet holes for the drawstring cord to be fed through. It's going to use double crochet stitches and chain stitches. I like to start this round with a standing double crochet, and I will show you my method for that in a second. But if you find that that is too much to get your head around right now, you can just chain 2 instead. That chain 2, so you do chain 1, chain 2, that will count as your first double crochet stitch. Okay, what I'm going to do is take that back, my version of a standing double crochet. So I'm going to pull up a nice tall loop and secure that with my finger on the hook. I'm going to insert my hook back into that same stitch that I did the slip stitch into, yarn over and pull through. So I've got the tall loop and another shorter loop on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through that short loop and then behind the taller loop so it twists it, and then yarn over and pull through again to finish it off, and then you do need to secure it with a stitch marker, otherwise it'll untwist. I'm going to show you that one more time. So pull up a nice tall loop, slightly taller than you'd want a double crochet stitch to be. Secure it with a finger, insert your hook back into that same stitch, yarn over and pull through so you've got a smaller loop as well. Yarn over and pull through that small loop, and behind the tall loop so the tall loop twists, and yarn over and pull through those 2 loops that are on your hook. And we're going to secure that with a stitch marker Make sure I get through both those loops. And that's the start of my round. Again, if you prefer, chain 2 instead. It's easier. I just prefer how this looks. Okay, we are now going to chain 1. So yarn over and pull through, nice and simple. We're going to skip this next stitch and work into the one after it. We're going to do a double crochet, so that's yarn over, insert into the stitch, yarn over and pull through the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And again, chain 1, and then skip a stitch and double crochet into the next one. So yarn over, insert into the stitch, yarn over and pull through the stitch, yarn over and pull through those 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops, and you've got 1 loop on your hook. You're going to go all the way around. You may have to fiddle a bit at the end, so I'm going to come back to you when I get to the end of this row and show you how I sort that out. As it turns out, I'm actually okay. So I have managed to get enough stitches in my previous row that means I'm ending on a double crochet and then chain 1, skip 1, so I can just join. You may, depending on how many stitches you've got, you may need to either chain 2 and skip 2 stitches for a slightly bigger hole, or do an extra double crochet, which will have you'll get a thicker post. It doesn't look as neat, but it's just as functional, so do not worry about it if that's the case. But as I said, all I need to do at this stage, having messed that up nicely, having done my last double crochet, is chain 1 and then slip stitch into the top of my standing double crochet. If you've done a chain 2, you will slip stitch into the top of your chain 2. Okay, and there we have, let me just take the hook out so you can see a little bit more clearly. Got the round for the eyelets. Okay, we are almost done. So for this next round, we are simply going to do a standing single crochet in the top of this standing double, or in the top of your chain 2. So that's much simpler than the double. You just pull up a loop slightly taller than a double crochet, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through that stitch, yarn over and pull through both stitches. That's all you need to do. I'm going to mark that so I know it's the first stitch of the round. Okay, and then we're going to put a single crochet stitch into each of the gaps and each of the double crochet stitches all the way around. So single crochet into this gap and then a single crochet into the top of that double. Single crochet into the gap and single crochet into that double. Just going to do that all the way around and then I will show you how I finish this off. Right. I've put my last single into that last gap. And now to finish this off, one final round, we're going to just slip stitch in every stitch all the way around. So insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull through the stitch. Oh, that didn't work. Yarn over, pull through the stitch and through that loop, so you've still only got 1 loop on your hook. And we're going to again just move that marker so I know that's the first stitch. Right, then insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through all the way into the stitch, yarn over, pull through all the way. We're going to do that all the way around. Try not to make them too tight because it will pull it in and alter the shape of your bag, but ultimately that's up to you. You can do them really tight if you want to, or keep them nice and loose. So I'm going to do that all the way around and then we'll do another invisible joint to finish off. Okay, I have slip stitched almost all the way around. I'm going to leave the last stitch unworked because the invisible join is actually going to cover that over and take care of it. If I slip stitched into there as well, I would then have to mess about with the invisible join a bit to make it truly invisible. So I'm going to stop there, one stitch unworked, cut myself a nice long tail and use the hook to pull that through. Find my needle, and we are going to insert that needle into the stitch where the stitch marker is. It's the first stitch of that round. Put it all the way through. Find where that thread is coming out of that last stitch that we worked. Pop the needle back in through that stitch and all the way through, and tighten it just a little to neaten it up. And you can see if I tighten it just a little bit more, you can barely tell. And then I'm just going to weave this in on the back side of the bag. Okay, here it is finished. The last thing we need to do is make the drawstrings. For this, I'm going back to the Aran weight yarn and the 3.5mm hook. It's entirely up to you which yarn and which hook you use for this stage of the process. The thicker the yarn and the smaller your hook, the tighter your cord will be. So it's entirely up to you. All we're going to do is make 2 chains. Each one wants to be slightly longer than the circumference of your bag. So I've got 40 stitches around the circumference of my bag. So I'm going to try 40 chain stitches. Start with that slip knot and we'll see how we go. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 49 and 50. Right, just pull that through for a sec. I'm going to measure this against the bag. Now the easiest way I find to do this is if you fold the top of your bag flat, just lay that down, and then fold your cord in half and lay that over the top. You can see it's just a tiny little bit longer. I'm going to do a few more stitches just to make it a little bit longer still. I don't want it too long, just a little bit more than it is at the moment. I'm going to do another 5 stitches, so it'll be 55 chain stitches, and that should be plenty. Let's give that a go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fold it in half again. And yeah, I've got a good little bit of extra length at the end now, but not too much. So I'm just going to cut that tail and pull that through, and I'm going to make exactly the same chain again. Here we go. I now have 2 cords and I just need to attach them to the bag. So I'm going to fold this in half again because I want to start at the end. I want to make sure this is pulled through evenly on both sides. I'm going to use a hook to help with this. I will use the 4mm one because it's slightly thicker. So I'm lining the folded end of my cord up with one side of the bag. And I'm just going to hold that in place. And I'm going to hook that cord and pull it through. Oh, I've got it stuck through that hole. This isn't working very well. Into the next one. Sometimes it's easier to use a hook, sometimes it's easier to just use your fingers, to be honest. Which looks like that's how it's going to be today. There we go, and just hold that steady again. We want it to go into this hole and out through this one. So we're going to insert the hook in there and pull the cord through like that. And then again it's coming out here, so we want it to go in here and out here. So insert the hook into this one, pull the hook in and back out. Keep going until you run out of cord, essentially, or almost at any rate. Try to keep it from pulling through any of the excess. We're going to do the same on the other side in a moment. In fact, I'm just going to go to the other side because I don't know how many more holes I need to pull through on this side. So it's the same idea here. We want it to go in through that hole, out through this one. So we're going to insert the hook and hook the cord down into that hole, back out through that one. I have pulled some of the excess through, I think, but that's okay. For this first one, it doesn't matter too much. Hook it through. Can be easier to just let your bag bunch up a bit while you're doing this. It gives you a little bit of room to work with. Do a bit more of this side. Just trying to get it as even as possible. You can do it all from one end. I find if I do it this way, it makes it a bit more even. It matters less with this first one than it does with the second one. Right, so I've now got one gap between the two ends, so I'm going to leave that there. Which means this isn't going to be quite even for the second one, but it'll sort of work. So this second cord, we want it to go over the bars that this first cord went under, and under the bars that this first cord went over. So I'm going to start here. Now I have got two bars it's going to go over at the back here, but that's okay. It's going to go over those. I want it to go under. Hang on. No, right, I want it to go under that. I want to go over that one and under this one. I'll deal with that bit at the back in a minute. Oops. Okay. Over that one, under this one. You might just need to move that first cord out of the way a little bit while you're working. That's all right. Over the next one, under this one. Try not to snag the stitches on the back, which I'm failing miserably at. Go over that one, under this one, I'm just going to come back to this other end of the cord now. Make sure that is that cord. Yes, it is, and not the other one. Right, so that's coming out, so it wants to go, the new cord wants to go over that bar, under this one. This is where we've got a slight issue because we've got two actually that it wants to go under. Just because of the number of stitches I ended up with. You may have the same issue, you may not. Okay, so it's gone under both of those. And then over this next one, under this one. Over that one. Under this one. Over that one. Under this one. Over that one. Under this one. Alright, check how symmetrical we are. So that's that side. That's that side, right? So if I bring this one over there and under there, that should line up and be relatively symmetrical, if not entirely even. And now when we pull the ends, the back does up. So to secure these cords, all I'm going to do is tie a knot in the ends, tie the ends together at each side, and then trim the yarn. You can absolutely embellish these in all kinds of different ways. You can add tassels, you can add beads, you can tie fancy knots. There's all kinds of ways of doing it. For the sake of this tutorial, I am just going to tie a nice tight knot and trim those ends. If at some point in the future it comes undone, I can sort that out then. Same on the other side. Just make sure that I'm just tying the tails and not the cord. Mangled this cord a little bit at one end, just with all the pulling through that I was doing. Go, tie that a few more times just to give it the best chance of staying together. Make sure it's nice and tight. Again, the fact that this is wool will help to stop it coming undone, because it will felt slightly over time. And there we go, here is a small basket bottomed bag, complete. I think it's really cute. Yours may be bigger, and that's absolutely fine. This is a really, really versatile pattern. You can make it any size you like. And the thing I like most about this is that you can fold the top section over the bottom, and then you've got a little basket instead. You can use it however you like. I made my very first one for my husband as a dice bag, and so you could use it to store the dice in when he wasn't using them, and then use it as a little pot to have them in while he was playing his games as well. So he could just pick them out and pop them back in, ask them when he needed them. So there you go. I hope this has been useful and that it's made a reasonable amount of sense. I know things got a little bit shaky when it came to weaving cord through just then, but hopefully you understood it. If you have any problems at all, either with this video or with the PDF pattern that accompanies it, or with the kit that you can get for these bags, please do feel free to email me. My email address will be in the description under this video, as well as linked in the PDF pattern. And you'll be able to get it via the kit as well as finding it on my Instagram profile, on my YouTube profile. It's all over the place. You can find it nice and easily. So yeah, any problems at all, please do get in touch and I will do my best to help you. But that is it for now. Hopefully now you have got a lovely little bag that you can put to good use. Thank you very much for watching and take care.